Let me start this story by saying, I have a terrible biological father. He has been a shady person all my life and constantly caused me a lot of grief. This story is just one of those examples. When I was 4, my parents split up. My mother and I moved to a different state, and they agreed I would visit my dad on every school holiday. At this one particular time, I had been with him for a few days when I was playing with my cousin at a nearby park. A car pulled up and I recognized the man as one of my dad's, quote, friends. He called me over and without thinking, I ran over to him and left my cousin at the park. He asked me if I could show him where my dad lived, and I agreed and got in his car. I gave directions and didn't notice at all that he wasn't following them correctly. And looking back, I didn't actually know the way anyhow. After way too long, I realized that we were getting closer to the city, which is far from my dad's house. We pulled up at a house I didn't recognize, and the man told me to wait in the car. I did, and I didn't feel scared at all for some reason. He eventually took me inside. That's when I definitely started to feel unsafe. I mainly remember 2 girls passed out with their tops off, and a much older man was feeling them up everywhere. I made eye contact with this man, and he made me sick to my stomach. I had figured out that this was a bad situation by this point. A lady took me into a bedroom and brought me a sandwich. The bread was stale, and I wasn't hungry, but I ate it all because I felt bad for her. And yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what I was thinking about for some reason. The lady told me a lot of things I didn't understand, but when she left, I remember thinking my dad was coming to pick me up soon. I fell asleep waiting for him. I wet the bed that night, and no one came to see me the next day until I cried very loudly and banged on the door. The lady came back and yelled at me for stinking up her bedroom, and I asked about my dad. She said he was coming tonight after he finished work. She didn't offer me a shower or a bath, so I sat in my soiled pants all day. After that, everything turned into a blur. My dad did not come that night, and I was so terrified. In my head, I felt like I had been there for months. I thought I was missing school, and everyone had forgotten about me. In reality, I was there for 5 days. They let me take 1 shower. I don't remember eating much except for boring sandwiches, and I think once I had chips and gravy. Finally, my mom drove across the country to come and get me. After not being able to get a hold of me or my dad for so long, and then me missing my pre-booked flight home, she panicked and came looking for me. Thank God she did. She found my dad at his girlfriend's house, completely methed out. Turns out, he owed a lot of drug money to the people who had taken me. They had told him that they had me, but he didn't have the money, or didn't want me back. Whichever it was, he didn't bother to put the effort to get me back at all. My amazing mom paid his debt after borrowing from a lot of people. I can still remember when someone came into my room to tell me my mom had arrived. Soon after exiting the room, I could smell her scent. It was the best feeling to feel safe again. She took me home, and I didn't see my dad again for a long time. She never even called the police. My parents' relationship was very complicated then, and I fully understand the choices she made. I'd like to note that I'm okay now. I've spoken about this in therapy, and I've come to terms with most of the things that I went through as a child. Regardless, it was still a fucked up situation for a 4-year-old girl to have to be in. So, to my dad's, quote, friend, the sandwich lady, and even to my dad himself, let's not meet. For 6 months last year, I lived in the northern part of Spain. About a week I was going to move back to Ireland. My friend and I were at my house having dinner and a little to drink. I was renting an apartment in the city, and my roommate was an older lady, maybe in her 50s. I'm 20, by the way. That night my roommate left to go have dinner with her friends. About a minute after she left, someone buzzed our door to be let into the building. I looked at the camera and didn't recognize the woman. She looked to be in her late 20s to early 30s, so I just assumed it was one of my roommate's friends and she was coming to meet her. I buzzed her into the building, assuming they would meet in the lobby. I walked away thinking that would be that. But boy, was I wrong. This woman came up to my apartment building on the 6th floor, just 2 minutes after my roommate left. I'm pretty confident she didn't take the stairs, so they must have seen each other when my roommate got off the lift and the lady went in. Realizing that this was odd, I didn't open the door when she rang. I looked through the peephole just to confirm that it was nobody I knew. At this point, I backed away from the door and gestured for my friend to be silent. We crept back to my room, which is at the far side of the apartment, and I began calling my roommate, who, of course, isn't picking up. Meanwhile, the lady is incessantly ringing my door. My roommate still hasn't picked up, and my friend was telling me to just open my door. In her mind, it's a woman, so she must be harmless. I told her she was an idiot for assuming that of the female sex. Women can be criminals too. She kept insisting that I open the door, but I kept refusing. The lady continued to ring at my door, while I continued observing her from the peephole, still trying to reach my roommate. At this point, I understood that if she knew my roommate or was looking for someone specific, she would just call or text them. However, she didn't take out a phone at all. She just stayed eerily silent, didn't call out any names or ask if anyone was home. That was weird to me. I finally got through to my roommate, who told me she wasn't expecting anyone and that she doesn't know anyone in that age range. She asks if I'm okay, and I tell her I'm fine. At this point, it's been at least 20 minutes. I know the lady knows someone is home because the lights are still on. I continue watching her through the peephole and see her go into the lift for a minute, and then come back out again. The lift is really loud, and I would have heard it move, but it didn't. She was able to just go in and come out. That meant someone was in the lift, waiting for her. This screamed sketchy to me. After about a total of 40 minutes, she finally left. I ran to our hall and flicked on the outside camera. The lady left the building with 2 men. They all had backpacks on. I'm eternally grateful for trusting my instincts and not listening to my friend. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Creepy lady with a henchman. Let's not meet again.